Many artists struggle with perspective, whether it's because perspective can be dry, kind of boring, maybe a little confusing. It can feel too mathematical because of terms like multiply and divide. But personally, I like perspective because, unlike other fundamentals, it instantly lets you know where you went wrong, and it's one of the easiest ways to instantly level up your art. In this series, we're going to make perspective easy by breaking down principles into simple concepts and go through simple demos and lessons that will break down the walls that make perspective intimidating. Hey, welcome to the channel. My name is Tyler. Your name is, Hansel?
Hansel. So hot right now. Hansel.
Today we're going to start off our perspective series with some basic concepts and one-point perspective. At its core, perspective is just a way for artists to see and draw things in three-dimensional space using three axes, the X, Y, and Z, for width, length or depth, and height. Some softwares switch around the letters for the different axes, so we won't focus too much on that. But it's basically making a grid which we can use as a reference when moving things around these axes, rotating objects, and scaling. So we almost always start with a horizon line. This is where the ground plane meets the sky. It can be anywhere on the page, but the position indicates the viewer's point of view. If the horizon line is high on the page, it means we'll be looking down and seeing more of that ground plane. Whereas if the horizon is low, it means we're looking up, mostly at the sky. Next is the vanishing point. When looking at something in perspective, parallel lines moving back towards the horizon will converge together, and they finally meet at a point on the horizon line. This is called the vanishing point. I always think of train tracks. If you're standing on a train track, make sure there's no trains coming. The steel rails, which we know are parallel, converge together as they go into the distance. They'll theoretically meet somewhere on the horizon at a vanishing point. You can have as many vanishing points as you want, hundreds even. So is there such a thing as a 100-point perspective? No, not really. We'll take a look at that in a later video, but today let's just focus on 1-point perspective. So let's put our vanishing point somewhere on the horizon line. Now we're just going to use simple boxes, and later I'll show you how we can use boxes to represent other objects. So first, let's start with the side of the box that is facing us. The great thing about 1-point perspective is all of your horizontal and vertical lines are perfectly straight and parallel to one another. Only the lines that go back in space will converge. Again, think of that railroad track. The metal rails converge, but the wood slats are all horizontal. Now let's give this box some depth by having it go backwards in space. The corners of this square will go back to our vanishing point. So let's draw that out. By the way, I'm using the line tool here for my lines, which you can use, but I do encourage you to try these freehand to practice drawing straight lines. Over time, you'll get more and more control. And then we can choose an area for our box to end. Let's say it ends here. So this is our box. Notice that this plane here is the top of our box, because the box is sitting below our horizon line, which means we're looking down at it. So we can do the exact same thing above the horizon, and this time we would see the underside. So these are the boxes as we would see them in real life, but it helps to draw through as if the box is transparent. This will help us understand the process better, and also helps us see if we've made any mistakes. So let's draw lines from the other corners, going back to the vanishing point. Then if we bring these intersections down to the ground plane we've now created, we get the bottom of the back side of the box. So now we can see all of the sides of our box. Here's what I love about perspective. When drawing these lines, if we happen to make a mistake, let's say we missed the vanishing point here, we can see that these lines don't line up properly, so we know we've made a mistake somewhere. With other fundamentals like anatomy, color and light, composition, you're not always aware of the mistakes you make, but perspective gives you immediate feedback, which helps you learn faster. Let's draw another box here. Once again, I start with the plane facing us, and the horizontal and vertical lines are all parallel to one another. Then I draw lines from the corners back to the vanishing point and determine where the back is. You'll notice that now we see the side of the box because we're over to the side of the vanishing point. What if I have a box go through the horizon line? Can we do that? Sure. Notice that now we don't see the top or bottom planes because we're looking up at the top of the box and we're looking down at the bottom. But again, if we draw through, you'll better see what's happening here. Another thing we can do is move these boxes around in space by sliding them along this grid that we're slowly making. So we can take the lines of the bottom of this box and bring them over, and we know that the depth of these boxes are the same. They're occupying the same space along the x-axis. We can also slide this box upwards. And finally, we can push it back in space by following our lines back to the vanishing point. Remember, these converging lines are going back in space, so when we do that, of course, the object gets smaller as it moves away from us. So if you want to practice this exercise, I encourage you to do a full page of these boxes. They can be randomly placed and random sizes, and you can also practice moving them left, right, up, down, backwards, and forwards in space. If you want to end here, that's fine. I think this is a great exercise. If you want to try something more challenging, stick around. For the next exercise, we're going to draw a room in 1-point perspective, but there are 2 things that we need to know first. First is the power of the letter X. If we have a rectangle and draw an X through the corners, you get the exact middle of the rectangle. If we split this now, the 2 halves of the rectangle are the exact same size. You can also do this to any plane in perspective, but notice now that the half closest to us appears bigger. This is called foreshortening, which is the second concept here. When things recede back in space, they get foreshortened. So while the closer half appears bigger, these halves are actually the same size in perspective. You also get foreshortening the closer you move to the horizon line. See how the top of this box appears shorter than the bottom of the box, even though they're the same size? The same thing happens with an imaginary vertical line at the vanishing point. We see more of this side here because it's further away from that line. So when measuring things in our room, which we'll see in a moment, it's easier to use the sides that we see more of. So for this exercise, try drawing a room in your house. Start with the horizon line and the vanishing point. Next, draw a square for one of the walls. We're not going to actually draw this wall, instead it will act as a window into the room, like one of the walls is invisible and we're looking in. Draw lines from the corners to the vanishing point, and now choose an area for the back wall. The easiest way to go about this is to draw everything as a rectangle on the floor, like a floor plan of a house, and then we can project those upwards. Again, this is because of foreshortening, and we'll see things easier because we see more of the floor. When measuring, we're just going to compare one object to another. So let's say this is a bedroom, and the bed takes up roughly half of each of the walls. Let's use an X to split the floor in 2, both width and depth. Now maybe the bed is a little longer than half the room this way, and not quite half of the room this way. Maybe your room isn't a rectangle, but a wall comes out here, maybe for a closet. Look at where the bed sits and compare. Is it wider than the bed? Is it more than half the room? Maybe a dresser goes here. How much of this wall segment does it take up? Maybe a bookshelf next to the bed? How much of this wall segment does that take up? Next, let's look at some heights. How tall is the bed? Roughly a quarter of the full height of the room? Let's find the halfway point of the wall, and if we have that again, that gives us a quarter. So maybe the bed is a little shorter than that. Use these methods to slowly fill out the rest of the room. Notice how everything is fitting in a grid. Everything is aligned perfectly to the walls. This might not be the case. You might have a chair or a TV in a corner at a 45-degree angle. We'll get to that in a later video, but for now, just have everything sit perfectly in the grid. This exercise might be tricky at first, but if you get stuck, refer back to the boxes exercise, and before you know it, you'll have drawn an entire room in perspective. If doing a room like this is overwhelming to you, you can stick with the boxes exercise. And if your comfort level is somewhere in between, you can check out my Putting Fun in the Fundamentals video, where we turn boxes into simple objects like amplifiers. It's a nice step up from the boxes, and it's easier than a full room if this is intimidating. Alright, that'll do it for our first video in this perspective series. If you did enjoy it, please do stay tuned for the next video in the series, which will be 2-point perspective. As always, thanks so much for watching, be good to one another, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.
Train dodge. Dig it.